Let's start with a true story. In March 2018, a woman named Elaine Hertzberg was crossing the street in Tempe, Arizona, when she was struck and killed by a self-driving Uber car. The autonomous vehicle had a backup driver in the front seat, but neither the car's system nor the human noticed Hertzberg until it was too late. This tragic incident shook the world because it highlighted both the promise and the peril of self-driving cars. Here we had a piece of cutting-edge technology designed to make our roads safer, yet in this moment, it had failed in a way that cost someone their life. Self-driving cars present us with one of the most exciting and controversial technological advancements of the 21st century. But they also bring up an important ethical debate. Will self-driving cars save us from the chore of driving, or will they introduce unforeseen problems as they continue to populate our roadways? Today we're diving into the ethics of self-driving cars by drawing on ideas from two different podcasts. A Secret History of the Future's The Fault in Our Cars, and Revisionist History's I Love You Waymo. These two take very different approaches to the social and spatial impacts of self-driving cars. By the end of this, I hope you'll be thinking more deeply about not just whether self-driving cars are a good idea, but how we should integrate them into our society, and whether we're doing enough to anticipate their unintended consequences. You've got to admit there is something exciting about the technology of self-driving cars. If you've ever been driving for hours on a road trip, then you know the effortful boredom of watching out for other cars as you try to keep yours within the lane lines. The podcast I Love You Waymo represents this enthusiastic embrace of self-driving technology. The promise here is a future where driving is safer, traffic jams are a thing of the past, and your car becomes a relaxing space where you can read a book, catch up on emails, or even take a nap while your vehicle takes you to your next destination. Proponents of self-driving cars point to at least three key benefits. First, their safety. The most influential argument you will hear is that self-driving cars will reduce accidents caused by human error, which is responsible for over 90% of traffic fatalities, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. That same administration reports that about 40,000 people die in the United States each year from car accidents. In a future where autonomous vehicles rule the road, we could see thousands of lives saved every single year. The second benefit is accessibility. Self-driving cars could provide newfound freedom to those who are elderly or disabled, allowing them to move around independently without relying on caregivers or public transportation. Additionally, parents have already begun using Uber's teen accounts so that 13 to 17-year-olds can use an Uber by themselves. Self-driving cars would only increase the availability of car rides for teens without their parents having to drive them. And the last benefit promoted by self-driving proponents is efficiency. Autonomous cars could ease traffic congestion through more coordinated driving patterns, leading to more efficient use of roadways, less pollution, and reduced commute times. If you've ever dealt with a greedy driver while trying to merge onto a freeway, you might welcome the communication and cooperation between self-driving cars in order to encourage all cars to operate more efficiently. Now, contrast this with The Fault in Our Cars podcast. As you may have noticed, this podcast begins in a much more somber and critical tone. It opens with the very real dangers that autonomous cars bring, starting with incidents like the one in Tempe, Arizona. The podcast dives into the more unsettling aspects of self-driving technology and asks whether we're moving too fast with this innovation before setting up some guardrails. Critics of self-driving cars argue that there are serious downsides. First, safety is not guaranteed. While the ultimate goal is to reduce accidents, self-driving cars are still far from perfect. Elaine Hertzberg's death in Arizona is a tragic reminder that the technology is not foolproof. The 2024 updates on the latest self-driving car statistics show that while the technology is improving, there are still serious concerns about reliability, especially on unexpected or complex traffic situations. According to a recent National Transportation Safety Board report, several incidents involving self-driving cars in the last few years demonstrate the technology's inability to respond to unpredictable human behaviors or unstructured environments. In short, self-driving cars operate well in familiar environments that have already been mapped out. However, new unmapped territory, road construction zones, and changes in weather work against self-driving cars in their current state. The second downside is job displacement. Critics also point to the massive job losses that could come with widespread adoption of autonomous vehicles. Truck drivers, taxi drivers, and delivery drivers could all be replaced by machines. This has real social consequences. Millions of people could be left without work, and our economy may not be prepared to support the shift if it happens suddenly. To demonstrate how close this threat is, in 2023, a caravan of truckers and Teamster union members descended on California's Capitol building to rally support for a new bill that would ban driverless semi-trucks in the state. The third downside to self-driving cars is surveillance and privacy. Many self-driving cars are loaded with cameras, sensors, and tracking systems that log your every move. In 2024, privacy concerns have only intensified as people worry about who owns this data and how it might be used. Imagine a world where your car knows everywhere you've been, and that information could be sold to advertisers or even law enforcement. This has come to light recently as a divorced female Tesla driver in San Francisco took her ex-husband to court for stalking her through the use of geolocation data from the ex-husband's Tesla app. The ex-husband allegedly tracked her location and even used a digital key on the Tesla app to open her car door and leave an aluminum baseball bat in her back seat. Some automakers have since taken steps to prevent the misuse of data and tracking information. General Motors, for example, in their OnStar mobile help system, allows its drivers to mask their location. Electric car manufacturer Rivian also is working on a similar opt-out system so that drivers can have greater control over their privacy and their security. Now, let's bring this all back to the ethical questions we first explore with Radiolab's driverless dilemma and the classic trolley problem. Self-driving cars force us to confront scenarios like this in the real world. If an autonomous vehicle must choose between hitting a pedestrian or swerving into a wall and harming its passenger, what should it do? How should we program these cars to handle ethical dilemmas that involve life and death? This isn't just a hypothetical scenario anymore. These decisions are being programmed into cars as we speak, and they're happening in ways that reflect the values of the people who designed them. How much control do we have as a society over these decisions? And how transparent are companies like Waymo, Tesla, or Uber about the ethical frameworks they're using? Let's not forget transportation historian Peter Norton's point about how innovations in transportation develop. Self-driving cars are still young, and their full social and spatial impact has yet to be realized. But we've been here before when automobiles replaced horse transportation. Just as the invention of cars reshaped cities, think of how roads, highways, and parking lots changed the face of urban landscapes. Self-driving cars today could also radically reshape how we live and move. Will we need parking garages anymore? Will urban sprawl increase or decrease as commuting becomes less of a hassle? What happens to public transportation systems if autonomous cars become affordable and widely used? These are critical questions that go beyond the technology itself and dig into the very structure of our cities, our lives, and what we value. So, in the end, where does this leave us? The debate over whether self-driving cars will make our lives better or worse is far from settled. It's clear that there are enormous benefits. The lives saved, freedom gained, and efficiency improved. But there are also significant drawbacks: privacy lost, jobs displaced, and ethical dilemmas left unanswered. Peter Norton offers some wisdom here. The future of this technology is not set in stone. It's up to us to decide how we want to integrate self-driving cars into our communities. As citizens, we have a say in shaping the policies and regulations that will guide this new technology. If we return to the tragic story of Elaine Herzberg, her death reminds us that while the vision of a utopian future with self-driving cars is enticing, we must remain critical and cautious. Technology isn't inherently good or bad. It's how we design, regulate, use, and ultimately how we adjust to its influence. As you continue exploring the ethics of technology in this course, remember that the future is not something that just happens to us. We shape it with our choices, our policies, and our willingness to engage with the hard questions. I encourage you to dive into these debates, challenge your assumptions, and think deeply about the ethical dilemmas posed by self-driving cars and other emerging technologies. Okay. That's it, folks.